They were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself.
They point to other guys, as you know, and say, oh, wait. Kobe and Michael would say, wait a minute, he didn't win as many championships with Jerry West. Hold on, you better mention Kareem. They would all mention Bill Russell. So the notion that anyone is saying, I'm the greatest, there's one guy in the history of sports I give total pass to saying I'm the greatest, and that's where GOAT comes from, Muhammad Ali. He's the only one who gets to say, I'm the greatest. Ali invented the conversation. He was, and to me still is, the greatest, because he didn't just change his sport. He didn't just change sports. He changed the world.
Changed society.
He changed the nation's position on war.
Himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him in his camp. Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Ray Allen never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Reggie Miller never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Allen Houston never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Nobody called themselves the greatest in anything but that man in his camp.
Let me say this loud and clear, so loud it echoes in every barbershop, locker room, and lazy ESPN panel across America. Allen Iverson's Game 1 performance in the 2001 NBA Finals was the single most fearless, disrespectful, undeniable, and iconic moment in NBA Finals history. Not Jordan. Not Kobe. Not LeBron. For Son. The man was 6 feet tall on paper, more like 5 feet 10 inches with braids and heart the size of Philly, and he walked into Los Angeles, into Shaq and Kobe's house, when the Lakers were 15-0, about to sweep the world. And he cooked them. He didn't just drop 48. He didn't just win Game 1. He humiliated them. He broke the myth. He stepped over Tyronn Lue, and stepped into history. And yet, to this day, y'all want to pretend like that game didn't happen. Like it was a fluke. Like AI wasn't that dude. You people have the nerve to rank guys above Iverson who've never had a moment like that in their lives. Well, today, I'm setting the record straight. Because that night, Allen Iverson wasn't just playing basketball. He was declaring war on the entire NBA hierarchy.
Charles Tabansi joined forces on ESPN to confront a growing concern in basketball culture.
They told him he was too small, too thin, too reckless, too selfish, too street. And yet, here he was. Allen Iverson, the 6-foot rebel from Virginia, standing in the eye of the biggest storm the NBA had ever seen, a storm dressed in purple and gold. Let's not sugarcoat this. The 2001 Los Angeles Lakers weren't just good, they were unbeatable. 15 straight playoff wins. Shaq at his most dominant. Kobe, already morphing into a cold-blooded killer. Phil Jackson, pulling strings like a Zen puppet master. This team was a steamroller on a warpath. Vegas gave Philly no chance. The media gave Iverson a shrug. And the NBA was already engraving the trophy. But Allen Iverson didn't give a damn about predictions. Because this wasn't just basketball for him. This was personal. He had been disrespected his entire life. From Georgetown to the NBA. Called a thug. Called a ball hog. Called a cancer to a team. They said he'd never win. They said he couldn't lead. And now, they were saying he was just a speed bump for Kobe and Shaq? Please. See, what people forget is that AI dragged that Sixers team to the finals with pure force of will. Not talent. Not superstars. Not a big three. He had role players, defenders, and lunch pail guys. While the Lakers were lounging in the lap of luxury with 2 top 5 players, Iverson was battling with bruised ribs and bruised egos. This was Goliath, fully armed, fully favored, laughing at the sight of David. But here's what makes Iverson different. Most guys try to survive that moment. They play it safe. Try not to get embarrassed. Allen Iverson, he welcomed it. He dared the lights to shine brighter. He walked into Staples Center with the swagger of a man who believed the crown didn't belong to Shaq or Kobe. It belonged to him, and he was coming to take it. Understand something, Iverson didn't have hype. He had heart. He didn't come with a legacy. He came with a grudge. And when he looked across the floor at Shaquille O'Neal, 7 feet 1 inch, 340 pounds of unstoppable force, and saw Kobe Bryant, the rising legend, he didn't blink. He never blinked. Because Allen Iverson had been in bigger fights before. Real ones. Off the court. In life. This was just basketball. And no matter how heavy the odds were, no matter how stacked the deck looked, he wasn't folding. He was gonna fight. With every crossover. Every pull-up. Every fearless drive into the trees. He was gonna fight for respect, for redemption, and for the right to be remembered. You want context? Here it is. Iverson was walking into a Game 1 that the world had already written off. The Lakers were supposed to cruise. This was supposed to be a formality. The next sweep. Another ring ceremony on the horizon. Philly was just there to play along. And yet, there was something different in the air that night. Something the Lakers, for all their dominance, hadn't prepared for. They hadn't prepared for Allen Iverson unleashed. Not the one who dropped 30 in a regular season game. Not the one who carried the scoring title. But the one who had been mocked, doubted, and cornered. And when you corner a fighter like Iverson, you don't get a basketball game. You get a reckoning.
The greatest of all-time conversation in the NBA has been a heated topic for years, but recently it took a sharp turn.
Stephen A. Smith mistakenly exposed himself and the fact that LeBron really shouldn't be in the top 3, and LeBron James stacked teams to get to where he is. So as he was talking about it, Stephen A. Smith then says he's wrong about not having LeBron in the top 3, but he's right by saying had Michael Jordan stacked teams to win championships, he would have had like 10 championships. So then the question then becomes, so if LeBron never stacked teams, how many championships would he have, Stephen A. Smith?
You ever see a man walk into a palace and burn it down with nothing but a pair of sneakers and a chip on his shoulder? That was Allen Iverson in Game 1 of the 2001 NBA Finals. Let me be crystal clear here, this wasn't just a basketball game. This was a rebellion. This was a statement carved in hardwood and sweat. And AI didn't just rise to the moment, he owned it. He owned the entire night like he paid rent at Staples Center. 48 points. On the road. In the NBA Finals. Against a team that hadn't lost a single playoff game in months. Are you hearing me? The Lakers were invincible. They steamrolled the Western Conference like it was child's play. They humiliated Duncan and the Spurs. They turned the Kings into clowns. Everyone was already handing them champagne. And yet, they had no answer for a 6-foot street legend with braids, tattoos, and zero fear. Let's walk through it. First quarter, AI comes out blazing. Crosses Derek Fisher out of his shoes. Pulls up mid-range. Bang. Drives into the lane, floats it over the trees. Swish. Hits another jumper in Kobe's face. You could hear the crowd go from confident to confused. Second quarter. He accelerates. Now he's talking. He's letting Rick Fox know he's food. He's barking at the Lakers bench. You can see the panic brewing in their eyes. This wasn't in the scouting report. This wasn't supposed to happen. Third quarter, they throw Tyronn Lue at him. Mistake. Iverson doesn't just torch him, he sets him on fire. Step back. Jumper. Cash. Crossover. Pull up. Cold. The man is putting on a clinic. A tutorial. An exhibition in destruction. By the fourth. Oh, it's personal. Shaq is still dominant. Kobe is still attacking. But Iverson, he's in that mode. That possessed zone where no defense matters, no coverage helps, no double team works. It's just him and the rim, and nothing stopping him from getting there. Then comes the moment. Overtime. Game tied. Crowd roaring. Staples Center shaking. And Allen Iverson does what only legends do. He isolates Tyronn Lue. Dribbles him into submission. Pulls back. Bucket. But that's not the highlight. Oh no. The highlight. The moment that's still frozen in time. The step over. Iverson drills the shot. Lue collapses. And AI walks right over him, not just with his feet, but with a statement that shook the league. That wasn't disrespect. That was domination. That was symbolic. The little guy stepping over the entire establishment. A 6-foot defiance against a 10-year dynasty in the making. And don't tell me it's just one game. Don't you dare. Because in that one night, Allen Iverson broke the myth. He shattered the narrative. He proved that greatness isn't measured by rings alone. Sometimes it's about the weight of a moment. And that moment carried more soul, more grit, and more raw power than entire playoff runs from guys the media loves to overhype. He didn't need a super team. He was the team. He didn't play by the system. He beat the system. He didn't ask for respect. He took it. And don't forget, he played 46 minutes that night. Took 41 shots. Got knocked to the floor over a dozen times. And still got up every single time like it was the first quarter. That wasn't a game. That was a man dragging his entire city on his back, and dropping them right at the Lakers' throne. And for one night, just one night, the so-called unbeatable dynasty had no answers. They got cooked. They got torched. They got Iversoned.
They were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him in his camp. Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Ray Allen never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Reggie Miller never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Allen Houston never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Nobody called themselves the greatest in anything but that man in his camp.
Let me ask a question that no one in the mainstream basketball world has had the guts to answer. Why is Allen Iverson not treated like a top-tier all-time great? Why is his name conveniently left out when the talking heads build their little Mount Rushmores? You'll hear Jordan. You'll hear LeBron, Kobe, Kareem, even Steph now. But Iverson? Silence. Shrugs. An asterisk if you're lucky. I'm here to burn that entire narrative to the ground. Because what Allen Iverson did, what he represented, wasn't just elite basketball, it was basketball rebellion. He was the storm that didn't ask permission to shake the system. But you want to know the ugly truth? The media never forgave him for it. They never forgave him for not kissing the ring, for not dressing the part, for refusing to pretend he was something he wasn't. While other stars played politics, Iverson played authentic. That made him dangerous. That made him unpredictable. And to the establishment, that made him unmarketable. You think the NBA was celebrating him when he was carrying the league on his back in the early 2000s? Please. They were scared of him. Let's call it what it is. Allen Iverson made them uncomfortable. He wasn't polished. He wasn't rehearsed. He was raw, real, and emotional. He brought hip-hop to hardwood and made no apologies for it. And that scared the suits upstairs. So instead of celebrating him, they minimized him. They reduced him to a volume shooter. They labeled him inefficient. They painted him as a bad teammate, a coach killer, a guy who couldn't win. Really? The same guy who dragged a barely playoff-worthy roster to the finals and stole a game off one of the greatest teams of all time? That guy couldn't win. You think if a certain golden boy in today's league dropped 48 in the finals against an undefeated squad, the league wouldn't put a statue of him outside the arena the next morning? But Iverson, nope. He gets cold stats thrown in his face. They bring up field goal percentage like it tells the whole damn story. Newsflash, efficiency never won a title by itself. Willpower, swagger, and toughness did. But the media doesn't like those metrics. Because those qualities can't be measured in spreadsheets or analytics models. They live in the soul. And no one in NBA history ever played with more soul than Allen Iverson. Here's another truth they won't say out loud. Iverson never got a pass. Not from the refs. Not from the league. Not from the analysts. Not from the fans. And certainly not from the journalists who wanted to see him fail just so they could be proven right. Meanwhile, we've got superstars today demanding trades when the coffee's cold. Team hopping like it's musical chairs. And every move they make is applauded like genius. Iverson never ran. He never begged for help. He stood in the fire, took every hit, every criticism, and kept showing up. But instead of raising him up for that, they threw him into the legacy trash bin. Let me be clear, that is a crime against basketball history. Because if you value toughness, if you value loyalty, if you value players who never cheated the grind, then Allen Iverson should be a religion. But the media never built the altar. They built a cage. A cage made of tired narratives, outdated opinions, and pure disrespect. And then they locked him inside it, and threw away the key. Well, I'm here to kick that door open. Because it's time someone stood up and said, Allen Iverson was not just great. He was the soul of the game.
Total pass to saying I'm the greatest, and that's where GOAT comes from. Muhammad Ali. He's the only one who gets to say, I'm the greatest. Ali invented the conversation. He was, and to me still is, the greatest, because he didn't just change his sport. He didn't just change sports. He changed the world.
Changed society.
He changed the nation's position on war. They point to other guys, as you know, and say, oh, wait. Kobe and Michael would say, wait a minute, he didn't win as many championships with Jerry West. Hold on, you better mention Kareem. They would all mention Bill Russell. So the notion that anyone is saying, I'm the greatest, there's one guy in the history of sports
I've listened to every argument there is out there for why LeBron should be considered the GOAT or next to Michael. I've pretty much heard them all. And out of the abundance of arguments that I've heard, not one of them is rooted in any kind of logic or sense. It's just rooted in a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of twerking, and a bunch of honey slinging.
You can look at the stats. You can dig through playoff records, all NBA teams, scoring titles. But none of it will explain what Allen Iverson really was. Because Iverson didn't just play the game. He shook the game. He was the earthquake the league never saw coming. Let me tell you what they'll never admit on those polished debate shows. There are players who dominate seasons, and then there are icons who shift eras. Allen Iverson did that with just a ball, a crossover, and a backbone of steel. You want to understand AI's legacy? Look outside the box score. Look into the stands. Look at the kids, back then and still today, rocking cornrows, headbands, tattoos, and armbands, walking into gyms believing they belonged, even if they didn't fit the mold. He didn't just inspire hoopers. He inspired misfits. He inspired fighters. He inspired survivors. AI was living proof that you didn't need to be 6 feet 8 inches and corporate approved to matter in this league. He told a whole generation, be yourself, even if it makes them uncomfortable. And that might be the most powerful message any athlete has ever delivered. You know what the real issue was? Iverson didn't fit their fantasy. He was too real for their scripts. Too raw. Too untamed. Too unfiltered. He wasn't going to smile for GQ or read off PR cue cards. He came as he was. And for the suits in the league office, that was terrifying. So what did they do? They tried to sanitize him. They implemented dress codes with AI as the unspoken target. They painted his passion as selfishness, his pain as drama, his heart as ego. But what they couldn't erase was the movement he created. Because while the media slept, the culture woke up. Allen Iverson became an anthem. A symbol. For every kid who was told, you're not tall enough, you don't act right, you don't play the right way, AI stood as a living rejection of that entire lie. And here's the twist they'll never say on air. Allen Iverson lost the finals, and still walked away a legend. That's unheard of. Name another star who lost the championship and still owned the moment like he won the whole thing. You can't. Because it never happened before, and it hasn't happened since.
Why?
Because legacy isn't always about rings. Sometimes, it's about revolution. Jordan changed how you win. Iverson changed who gets to believe they can win. That is impact. That is influence. That is greatness that goes beyond any scoreboard. So when they leave his name off the all-time lists, when they treat him like a side character in someone else's movie, when they act like he was a fad, a phase, a moment, they're lying. They're lying to protect a narrative that never had room for a warrior like Iverson. They're lying because they can't measure what he meant to the people, not the press. And they're lying because deep down, they know. Allen Iverson was the soul of an era. Not just a scorer. Not just a star. He was the game's pulse. And you don't erase a pulse, not with time, not with rings, not with empty debate. You honor it. You remember it. You feel it. Forever.